Welcome to Android Dialogues, where we have bite-sized conversations with people from the Android community. I'm Chuki Chen, and today we're speaking with
Sam Bobra. Hello.
Hey Sam.
Hi.
Where are you based? What do you do? And how do you get started on Android?
All right. So I'm based in Oakland, California.
Great.
I am a software engineer at a company called VSCO. We make a photography app. And I got started on Android when I was in college, actually. My last year of college, me and some of my classmates were working on a startup, which was really nice because by the time I graduated, I already had some solid Android experience when I went out into the working world.
Yeah, that's great. And you've been doing Android since then?
I've been doing Android since then. I've been working at VSCO for about 4 years now, doing Android and more recently sort of like Android full stack backend stuff too.
Cool. Yeah, so today we're actually interested in hearing about the whole journey of you being in VSCO for 4 years, because a lot of the times what happened, at least like in my experience, is we may start working on an Android app. It's a small app. We just got to throw some things together, push it out. But then there's more and more features and more team members, and there's a lot of growing pains. So I thought maybe you can tell us stories about your battle scars and like that didn't work, but that worked really well.
Sure. Yeah. So what I wanted to talk about today is just working on Android at a growing startup that's always changing. Your team grows, your app changes, and just like what that experience is like. So when I first started at VSCO, I was actually the first full-time Android hire, and originally the app was built by 2 contractors, and it was built just like really quickly. Like everyone was asking like, where's VSCO for Android? So it was just getting out the door really quickly. So then after that, when I started working there and I was the only employee, it was kind of like, here you go, like here's the app, it's yours now. And I was like what do I do with this app?
So you inherited a code base that you didn't write. You had no say in how things are decided.
And back then the company was really small. Like I said, I was the only person on the team. And over the years, the app has been really successful. The code base has grown a lot. Our team grew a lot. At one point, maybe we had as many as like 10 different people working on the app. And these days now it's still maybe like 5 or 6 people. The most important thing for me has been embracing change, and just embracing the fact that when you're getting started, everyone tells you that you should be writing this really clever code that like for longevity. But practically when you're working for a startup and you're working on a product where the requirements are always changing, the code base is always changing. The things that you write honestly might not be around for that long. So you sort of have to use some common sense to make trade-offs between this is what I think is like right and the proper way to do it, and like, okay, but I'm writing this and I know that the design is going to change next month. So like, how do you find that balance?
So in terms of there's a lot of industry best practices, right? Oh, you do the MVP pattern, or we'll do testing. Like, how do you decide like what is good for kind of the long-term health of the project versus we just need to get things done. They may change their mind 3 months later. So if you spend 2 months setting up the proper infrastructure, that it's not really a wise decision. Like, is there any particular case that you can share with us where you're like, wow, we had this problem and then I was tempted to use this, but we didn't, or the other way?
I mean, I think that's a really hard question because as just a fact, you're gonna get it wrong a lot. Like there's like this quote from Batman that's like, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain.
Oh, wow. So I have feels like when I look at my code base, when I see anything I wrote 2-3 years ago, I was like, what was I thinking?
So, exactly. So I think it's kind of a wrong assumption to think like, oh, if I just like think about this problem long enough, I'll be able to find the right solution, because what's the right solution at the time isn't going to be the right solution for your company 6 months from now when you decide to like pivot and go in a completely different direction. So I think you do your best and you take everything as a learning experience, and it's really great when you work for a company for a long time. Like, you always have this idea of what the best practices are just based on like, what you learned at school or what you read in a blog post. But when you work somewhere for a long time, you actually get to see the results of your actions, right? It's like you get to implement something, and you have a thought of like what you think it's going to do for you, and you might find out that 6 months down the road you're completely wrong. But you treat it like an experiment, right? Like you're like, I tried this, it didn't work, or I tried this and I did work. That, right? So it's cool. I think you learn a lot of wisdom just from getting to watch what happens after you make decisions. And what works for your team in the early days is not necessarily going to be what works for your team in the later days. So I know at our company, for example, in the early days, we had very like stringent coding guidelines. It was like everything had to be by the book, and like that really worked for us at the time. And then we had a lot of a lot of changes in our team, and now it's like a little bit more loose, and people are a little bit more trusted to make their own decisions, and that works for the new people on the team. And I think it's been a challenge for me is to like figure out how to roll with the punches and say like, there's different people now. What worked back then is not really what works anymore. And just adjusting to that. And also what you were saying about people being involved in the product process, just accepting that if you're on a team that's growing, in the beginning, you have a lot of like control over what's going on. The app kind of felt like my baby. I knew every single thing that was being checked into the code base. And these days, the team is bigger. Everyone's got their own project. I don't know everything that's happening in the code base, and that's okay too.
That's hard to let go.
It's really hard.
Like from having that total understanding of every single corner of the app to I trust that this bit is done properly. I will work with this person. And wow, cool.
And you don't want to be that person either who who's the person who has like all the knowledge. Like it kind of feels good sometimes because you're like, oh, this code base is my child. But at the same time, like, you don't want to be that single point of failure. You want to distribute that knowledge to everyone else on your team, even if they're new. Like your goal is that you want them to have the same amount of knowledge that you do. So like pass it on.
So if there's like one thing that you can go back 4 years and tell yourself, like how to make this process smoother, like what would you say to past Sam?
I think one thing that I struggled with is kind of going back to the beginning of when we were talking is just getting comfortable with your own mistakes and getting comfortable with deleting your own code. I know that there were times where like I wrote something and I was really proud of it, and a couple years went by and either we decided as a company that we didn't need that feature anymore, or like technology has changed in Android. I wrote something and then like a really hot library came out that did that thing, but much better than my like crappy code from several years ago. And I think at first I became really like emotionally attached to the work that I did, and I was like, no, but like it's good. But just coming to terms with everything you write is a business solution, and everything you write is ultimately temporary.
Oh, wow, that's so zen.
Like nothing is permanent.
That's like a philosophical change almost, right? Because like we are very proud of our work, and we should be. But if you get too attached to it, then it actually holds you back. And then like your emotions come into it, and you can't really make an informed decision of saying like, oh, like, I wrote this like image caching library when I first started working there, and it was like terrible, but and everyone was like, oh, like we should be using like Picasso, we should be using Glide, and I was like, no, like the code is perfect. It was terrible, and I'm so glad that we got rid of it. Wow, that like I said, that's like not only like coding advice, that's like life advice. There's a time and place, and sometimes you just have to clean house, and you need to accept that it was useful. I don't know if you know like Marie Kondo.
I just read that.
You have to thank your code and say thank you, and then throw it away.
It's exactly like that. It's exactly like getting rid of your like ugly sweaters.
That you thought you will wear one day. No.
So exactly.
Wow. I never thought I would quote Marie Kondo in my Android dialogues, but I just did. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing your tips with us. If people want to follow you on the internet, where can they find you?
I guess the easiest thing is Twitter. You can find me at Sam Writes Code.
Cool. Well, we'll put it on the lower third so that people can copy and then follow your good work on the internet.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much, Sam.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Bye.
Bye. you.